If you've ever been online and around certain groups, you may have seen this face before. The face is pretty unique, isn't it? It's from an online series called Ena, a series that to many needs no introduction, but to others appears totally unknown. And you might not be surprised to hear it's garnered quite the following for being as expressive as it is unique. I think Joel G's online series requires no introduction, but in case you aren't aware, it's one of many YouTube online series which are animated. But in my opinion, what makes this one particularly stand out is the fact it's extremely surreal. Its animation is also incredibly visually distinct, featuring a variety of techniques from 3D CG to hand-drawn characters. It all comes together with the music to create a very interesting atmosphere, reminiscent of both early internet culture and early surrealist paintings. The series follows the titular character, Ena, who shifts between different moods and voices, navigating bizarre, otherworldly landscapes filled with cryptic characters and abstract challenges. It's presented in such a way that sort of provides certain Y2K era sensibilities and early internet culture, which it carefully mixes into a strange blend of avant-gardism. Drawing inspiration from classic point-and-click adventure games and early internet culture, Ena creates a world that feels deeply nostalgic yet plagued by an irreparable suffering, alienism, playful yet deeply unsettling. Its unconventional structure and enigmatic symbolism have led to a dedicated fanbase to dissect its meaning, often linking it to themes of liminality, emotional duality, and digital consciousness, which are themes which I as a person am a sucker for personally, and have always been. If by this point in the video you aren't familiar with any of the Ena videos, you could go watch them on Joel G's channel, although they aren't necessary for understanding the contents of this video. It's been 2 long years since the first trailer of Joel G's video game Ena Dream BBQ has been released. So much so that since the time it was released, I often question if I am the same person I was when I first watched it. Anyways, when I heard 2 years ago that a video game, an explorer space of Joel G's sort of magnum opus from his collective work in the internet culture was going to come out, I just had to be there. I had to be there as early as possible. It reminded me so much of the landscapes of LSD Dream Emulator and other PS1 era games, which were essentially walking simulators with a certain degree of interactability. 1.5 years ago, I decided to do a video on exactly that subject, and now we're finally here. I can say it's paid off in giving me experience to properly convey the themes and ideas of this game. At the same time, 1.5 years ago, I promised myself I would do a video on the game when it comes out. So, shall we get into it? The game opens with a black screen as we are greeted by a voice in Japanese that salutes us in an informal manner. A simple "hey" is heard out of the darkened void, just for it to be followed with an equally as common question. What are you up to? Then the screen turns into a volume and gamma slider, sort of stylized in some manner. The face of Ena shows up on screen and displays an ear symbol first for the sound, and for the gamma splits into 3 different heads, each slightly darker than the other. After we adjust these 2 settings, her hands come out of the side of the screen and repeat diagonally, leading us directly into the action of the game and simultaneously telling us that we are indeed playing as Ena herself. This seamless melding of user interface and character immersion sets the tone for what is to come. To be more exact, the way game elements will be inserted into the game's environments in a diegetic manner, and the way cutscenes work. As soon as the black screen is pulled apart, we are transitioned into a deeply red environment, between the houses of a small, rural Japanese town. Power lines can be seen flowing through the skyline, far in the distance and extending into the infinity of the crimson sky, as it all encapsulates a very bizarre atmosphere. Particles of spider jumping up and down are all around the screen. Spider or beetles, I can't really tell from this sprite work. As we walk by, we soon realize the houses keep looping, and in the sky looms a giant swimming through the ocean of blood. No matter how far we run, we keep bumping into the same bed in the middle of the road, hinting at the fact that maybe we are in some sort of dream. I think a lot of the small details which build the scene help construct this sort of mystifying atmosphere. The reddish hues of the sky, the hills in the distance, full of power lines, the beaten path in the middle of the road, the lanterns hanging around from the roofs of the houses, and weird architecture which can be found lying in a lot of places, ranging from triangles of concrete to other more obscure structures made out of the same material. When interacting with the bed in the middle of the road, we are given the option to open the door. This option is rather strange. It's clearly a symbolic door, but a door to what? We question as curiosity pushes us further. This may or not be a certain metaphor for sleep. The way I extract meaning out of it is the following, but be sure to remember this is just my opinion. In our everyday lives, going to bed represents safety and rest, yet here it paradoxically becomes a portal into the unknown. Which again isn't that far off from dreams, for example. But if you're already dreaming, does that imply we're going down a layer just heading to bed? Why does the familiar act of preparing for sleep suddenly reveal a doorway to something entirely different? Could it be that in this surreal world, even our most secure routines hide truths yet unknown to us? Perhaps the game is asking us to consider whether our dreams are truly safe havens or if they might instead be thresholds to hidden realms of experience. But I'd argue that's overthinking it. So why don't we just click the button and see what happens, shall we? The moment we click it, Ena lays down looking upwards at the power lines and the blood-like lake, which is the sky, as the giant figure continues its swim through it. Then, the screen gradually shifts to a deep red before we suddenly plunge through the bed and floor with a resounding bang, awakening in an entirely different place. Turning behind us, we can see the bed we laid on moments ago is now sitting upright. We appear to be in some sort of bizarre casino. A few handfuls of machines appear left and right, currently offline. They display a strange eye symbol. The interior is unlike anything I've seen. It looks like some sort of temple, not entirely Japanese nor distinctly any other tradition, with red and blue walls and floors patterned with orange diamond tiles. There's smoke from some alleged sensors, but we don't see any around. Walls with red and blue colored surfaces, floors with orange tiling in the shape of diamonds, yet the room, despite the exotic decor, is simply a long hallway. We step forward and along the way we pass what appears to be a store and a hallway, both have their shutters down. As we walk through a gate, we are met with a flight of stairs which reach outside. We walk up the flight of stairs and are welcomed by an environment straight out of a nightmare. A giant eye looming in the sky, smoke in the atmosphere as we walk onto a big mat with a pattern which serves as the floor. The camera switches to third person and Ena begins addressing the two individuals which now lay in front of her. Here we are given our first quest. We are searching for the boss.
Where the hell is the boss?
Yes, I am.
We meet the two characters. The first one lies about being the boss. This is a recurring joke consistently told by various characters throughout the game. His name is Dracula. He's a green-looking copycat of Nosferatu which claims he's scared of penguins. He additionally insists he's not one, but under his coat we can see a pair of penguin legs, which sort of insinuates he might be multiple penguins doing the whole three kids in a trench coat stitch. Dracula also constantly repeats his name, which annoys Froggy, the other guy presented in this scene. Froggy is the guy whose voice we heard in the beginning. He's a Japanese dude in a black frog costume with two large eyes. The costume is cel-shaded in such a way that we can see a white outline surrounding it. The rest of his body resembles ukiyo-e, an art style used for traditional woodblock prints and paintings. His lower body is also strange. He wears a grey loincloth, black shin wraps on his legs and a pair of green getas. This outfit suggests a mix of traditional Japanese and possibly fantastical or supernatural elements. I'm guessing rather than assume his outfit is based on a samurai or yokai, we can safely presume he's more of a monk type character, since he seems to be Ina's employer slash co-worker, and helps her all throughout the game. Froggy mentions he knows where the boss resides and shows towards a mountainous island in the distance, but mentions that due to the smoke they can't really work into getting there. So we make a deal with Froggy. In exchange for helping him remove the smoke, he'll help us get to the boss and kill him. Finally, we get a title drop as fireworks begin filling up the sky and the game properly begins. We received the mission to go back to the casino we came out of and talk to the receptionist in the hopes of gathering more information about the boss and how to get to him without dying because of the smoke. We can now freely move around the island. Pressing tab in-game opens a menu which is a foldable map-like leaflet that keeps track of our dialogue and most of our quests. It looks quite neat and makes sense in the context of the game. The first thing I did upon receiving full control was trying to jump into the red blood sea to see if anything would happen, its surface teeming with bizarre leg-like creatures. Upon jumping in though, you get kicked out by a leg. A smart implementation of a physical barrier, but also one that ties back to the diegetic nature of the game I mentioned earlier. The first time it happened, it also managed to get a chuckle out of me, which in my book gives it extra points. Going back and talking to Dratla again, we learn he's the one who told us where the boss is hiding. The dialogue then turns to gibberish as he assumes we called him a stingy penguin.
Did you call me a stinky penguin?
No, but I know a guy who could get you one.
I can hear your thoughts. Stop!
If you try to talk to him after the short cutscene ends, you soon realize that you are left with nothing but his repetitive comedic refrain of his name. His absurdity only deepened by the game's surreal atmosphere as he repeats phrases like, "I am a vampire, I am so strong." Looking around at the landscape properly with an all-seeing eye in the sky, cryptic murals on the ground and beacons reaching upward amid swirling smoke, it very well sets the tone for the entire game. Around the island there are but two interactable blue figures which claim to be doors when interacted with. But we can't use them for now, so we head back downstairs to the casino. Now the machines seem to have sprung to light. LED lighting illuminating the walls as their colored screens flash and their mouths have started moving. From the place we passed earlier, which seemed to be an empty store, a fountain of blood is flowing and right beside it, a long corridor leading to the inner casino. Along the corridor there are a few handfuls of stores all closed, with their shutters down. We can knock on each one but nobody seems to come out. Believe me, I've tried. We walk into the casino properly, a large room filled with multiple rows of machines. Here we can find different types of gamblers. On the middle row is a creature that's a pair of legs and a coral. He mentions something about the crowd door. The rest of his dialogue is about gambling. There's also another person which seems to be a see-through slime with organs floating around. This one speaks of a lonely door. And again, after exhausting that dialogue option, they keep talking about gambling. Close to the place it's sitting at is another one of those blue creature-like places called doors. We can assume that is the door of crowds, perhaps. Parallel to it, on the entire other side of the room, is a pair of legs which again talks about gambling and doors, and next to it a black and white boa lookalike which yet again talks about gambling. Heading behind the reception we can see the lake of blood from underneath. The description says it's the natural habitat of the legs. Finally, heading to the reception we speak to the receptionist, which starts by insulting us and calling us poor.
Allez-vous-en! Vous sentez la pauvreté! Allez manger des plats surgelés, sale limace à col rose!
It appears to be a figure made out of rough, single-colored, low-polygon count shapes. She says the boss hasn't been born yet and keeps insulting us, but gets mad when called poor.
Que vous racontez des conneries de prolétaires! Vous arrivez trop tard! Le boss n'est même pas encore...
She tells us that the genies are the only ones with the authority to call off the smoke, and that they reside inside every single door in this place. So now we know we must go back up and enter one of the doors in order to meet the genie and stop the smoke. On our way back, we receive a call from Froggy telling us he won't be able to come with us to the alternate dimension of the doors, but will stay in touch through the phone. Returning to the place where he's sitting at, we can speak to him for more dialogue about the genies, but nothing immediately useful. If we look around the island now, however, there's a few new faces which we have not seen before. The first is a Korean businesswoman with a coral in her eye. She tells us that she was only hired to find an entity which can organize the inauguration of the horse door's new genie. The horse door probably being the one right behind her, which looks like a horse laying down. Next to the staircase there's a piggy bank, which upon being interacted with is broken by a meteor, and out of the coins which lay on the ground, a cat of coins is formed. A Russian cat returning with the joke that it claims to be the boss. Something Dracula also said. His name is Kane. He asks if we've seen The Lonely Door and claims he's a big fan of it, saying he wants to party illegally inside it in every single way. He also mentions something about meeting the bathroom this time. Ena correlates the bathroom with the genie, saying they are the same thing, but this confuses Kane. He mentions not remembering what happened last time he was inside the Lonely Door. We can assume he was on some kind of drugs. After we exhaust all of his dialogue, the same meteor which broke the piggy bank comes back and breaks him apart, leaving behind a pile of coins and his clothes on the ground. Right across from him we can see two bell-headed figures standing, their eerie visages framed against the backdrop of this surreal realm. When we interact with them, symbols beneath their hands and heads merge into a hand that astonishingly conjures another strange character into existence. Dressed in a kimono and sporting four hands that play with red string between his fingers. His face is hidden beneath a mushroom-like hat. The bottom of both his feet form one enormous palm, and his blue skin contrasts with a terrifying knowing green. He returns like a lot of characters with a reoccurring joke that he's the boss, before Ena promptly calls him a liar, like she did with the rest of the characters. His voice echoes. He said he has studied Ena for a very long time. When called a stalker, he says he isn't one, but a lot of stalker entities hide inside the crowd door, begging for fame. He then says no Piero the genie equals no town. He mentions Piero is a deity with deviant tastes, which will probably not welcome Ena easily inside its domain. From here, I personally tried to look around the island for extra secrets. I found this weird hole and that if you fall into the blood lake here, you get a cutscene and end up in the casino. There's also a symbol on the back of this rock, again, unsure what it means. Eventually, the only thing that remains interactable on the island remains the figure called the Lonely Door. So after finally getting the guts, we open it and receive a hug from it. As it hugs us, we are teleported to yet another different realm. I'm thinking that even the door in the beginning must have been one of these genie doors. And by that I meant the bed we went to sleep in. Anyways, leaving that aside, we wake up on a dark alley. Behind us lay the Lonely Door. If we interact with it, the text says there's no need to go back. Find the word is censored. Something weird is going on. As we follow the corridor and enter a large room, we are greeted with a message that says, oddly there's a sudden urge to go to the bathroom. We get a call on our phone from Froggy, which mentions the absurdity of the fact none of the characters so far have spoken about the genie of this world.
変に思うかもしれないんだが、このドアのジーニーじゃないかと思うやつについて俺は何も聞いてないんだよ。なんだかどうも臭い気がするんだがね。ああ、くそにしてもここはナフタリン臭くてかなわんな。
Let's think on it. Gather info and ask questions. I will provide us with the factual truth about this genie.
Anna tries to reassure him, telling him she will find out the truth about the genie, but her words get twisted into bathroom. From here on out, it appears every time the word genie is said, it magically turns into the word bathroom. This seems to be the effect of this world. I want to take a moment here and tackle very much the absurdity of this game. Not a narrative device, but as a cornerstone representing its fragmented but utterly mesmerizing artistic identity. In an era where discussion about video games as art still often hinge on their ability to convey a concrete message or moral lesson, this game stands as a powerful counterexample. It does not present a clear ideological stance, nor does it seek to guide the player toward a singular interpretation. Instead, it embraces chaos, contradiction, and ambiguity, hallmarks of avant-gardism, realism, and oftentimes things which have been done in the past in some regard. I often think back to the landscapes of Humaniki, with its flowing, ever so creative idea of the Nexus, which shows the ability to enter different dreams from a central part of the game, an idea which feels echoed throughout Ena's design philosophy. I think future chapters will tackle more doors after each of these doors we've been through, returning to the hub area. I think some of the design philosophies are taken from Humaniki 2, with the pattern on the flooring featuring oftentimes murals which appear similar to the one seen in that game. Although their situations couldn't be more different, as one seems to tackle the idea of sleep in an interesting manner, while the other's existence is just always in absurdity. We'll tackle this as we explore more the video's ideas, but for now we'll have to push further for just a bit. Around the room there are 3 matryoshkas which we can push around, each one making a certain bell sound when touched. There's clearly space for a 4th matryoshka right towards the exit, although this one appears to be missing. In the room ahead we can see the features of a skull reflected in the chandelier, perhaps indicating that imminent death lay ahead of us. Walking into the next room and interacting with the window reveals a large span of things outside the mirror's view. A giant desert with a fragmented sky, buildings galore scattered, trees with owls and a giant 2-headed creatures whose bodies a prism move around. We walk on out the door and the first thing we see is a shrine with a golden toilet and incense sticks inside. Interacting with it simply says, "This is not the genie," before quickly shifting into, "This is not the bathroom." This hub in the middle of the world feels like the beating heart of a realm of possibilities, one from which multiple endings and routes branch out. Here landmarks serve as puzzles, gateways, and cryptic signposts. The shifting language, the missing matryoshka, the skull in the chandelier, and the shrine's conflicting messages all hint that each object has its own narrative weight. Since the game has multiple branching paths as I've mentioned, I'll go over the landmarks first and then talk about each ending in particular. This world has a variety of buildings. The building we came out of is a big cruise ship which seems to be stranded in the desert. There's a seal house which is also a colored tent, which leads to the inside of a giant seal, within a shaman lives, which has a certain quest. There's a cave within one of the ruined apartment buildings, and also a building which seems entirely blown up. A bridge guarded by a seal guy who speaks Spanish, and a giant island in the sky. Is that a lot? Yeah, it can be overwhelming at first. It was for me too. All around this giant field are different characters with their own struggles, and trees with faces which have crowns on them. It's all so strange. As I've said earlier, so strange it jumps from being surreal to straight up committing to an avant-garde approach. Although rather than bathe in the nonsense, it tries to hermetically prove meaning through words which seem to lose meaning. Avant-garde art historically has always been about the challenging conventions, breaking down the structures of meaning, and engaging the audience in ways that defy expectation. This game does exactly that. It rejects traditional storytelling methods and instead immerses us in a world where logic is secondary to sensation, where meaning is not delivered on a silver platter, but rather emerges or refuses to emerge from the player's experience. The fragmented narratives, shifting environments, and bizarre encounters all contribute to an aesthetic that resists categorization. The game is full of spaces that feel like memories, echoes of forgotten places twisted into something both familiar and deeply alien. The Bathhouse, the desolate wasteland, the chaotic rave, the interior space of a changing room. Each of these environments seem to exist outside conventional time and space, existing instead as states of mind, reflections of emotions rather than locations or reflections of the feelings an individual felt when existing in them previously. They're disjointed and not only nonsensical in their three-dimensional space, but also in their existence outside that. By doing so, the game aligns itself with the surrealists and Dadaists, who sought to depict not reality as it is, but reality as it felt. The game is not interested in world building in a traditional sense. It is interested in constructing a space where perception itself is challenged, and as such, I'd like to take a similar approach to writing this video in particular. Present the feelings and environments and only occasionally try to derive meaning from them. So let's start talking about the environments and the progression in a somewhat logical manner. I'll start first with some of the optional content, which can be found within the contents of the game. One of the quests is to help a house character get the head of a taxi driver which has had his head stolen.
What a bar... Of course. Delighted to help a business fellow.
If you ride the taxi before acquiring his head, however, you get transported to a seaside town at night. The scene overviewing the sea, as a slanted hill gives in a closely romantic vibe. A giant moon reflecting in the surface of the sea as it foams. There's a person here, but upon interacting with them, they just appear to be an absolute gigachad? What the? There's no sound or anything for this cutscene. He just turns and smiles with his chiseled face before, he returns to gazing the sea. If we take the red door, we are thrown right where we left off and given an achievement. But if we go through the back alley near the red door, it leads us to a cryptic and strange labyrinth. Upon entering it, the music abruptly cuts out, and loud sort of whispers combined with screeches start looping as very few piano notes hang about in the atmosphere. The maze is rather strange and features symbols everywhere on its walls, along with windows showing two people fighting. I'm guessing. I'm not exactly sure what any of this means. There are some trash cans which you can interact with at certain points scattered among the maze. Each one takes you outside. But what you appear to need to do is intentionally fall down holes and open doors, descending deeper into it. It's quite a straightforward job, nothing too big. It's quite dull and repetitive, and the only highlight I could say is I found before its end was one of the characters which appears in every route of the game. Wandering about, she claims that indeed this is a maze and nothing more. After some time we arrive at a room differently colored from the rest, and upon dropping down through the floor we are greeted with a jazzy tune. A marble store hangs about. Seems like something of jewelry or some other feminine trait, maybe perfume. I can't quite tell, but the items are all abstract. The shopkeeper is a bust of a woman with a giant hat. Her smoke creates a gown of fur. She welcomes us and tells us her products won't make you truly beautiful, but they will hide things for long enough.
Si tu te posais la question, tu veux être jolie. Tout le monde le veut. Mes produits ne feront pas de toi une beauté, mais peut-être...
This line is both a wry critique and a realistic nod to how cosmetic products in the real life often promise temporary concealment rather than genuine transformation. I'm guessing this character in particular is an ironic generalization of the beauty industry. Looking around the store, it's a variety of very expensive items which seem to be makeup or makeup adjacent. Personal cheese, make it yours, apply liberally for lips from which every word amazes. Coconut milk and a jar of Alfredo. Very strange products indeed. These items exaggerate the beauty industry's tendency to market almost anything as a solution to beauty woes, even if it makes little sense. The humor here is twofold. It pokes fun at the extravagant, sometimes nonsensical claims made by beauty products, while also highlighting a truth about our obsession with superficial appearances in our day-to-day lives. After we leave the store, its facade remains forever anchored in the room with the matryoshkas, so it appears we can return at any time we please, although there isn't anything else to do inside.
regarder si ça t'amuse, mais sois fixé. Je ne marchanderai pas.
Outside on a worn-out couch positioned beneath a window, in the beginning, lies yet another bizarre character. This man, a grotesque amalgam of organs and jelly, appears as one of many fodder characters we meet throughout the game, populating this surreal landscape. We meet one in the casino in the beginning. There's one right outside the giant cruise ship. Figures whose sole purpose is to deliver a single, usually cryptic or enigmatic line. This guy says, "The window is always calling us to witness the beauty of the greatest existential question. Does the bathroom really exist?" The statement is a funny but pointed jab at our cultural fixation on superficiality and the endless search for meaning in triviality. The window is a symbol of hope, insight, or the boundary between our inner and outer worlds, but repurposed here as a conduit to an absurd inquiry. By juxtaposing the mundane, the bathroom, with the lofty concept of an existential question, the game critiques our modern obsession with appearances and the promises of consumer culture, considering the fact the line suggests that even our most basic necessities and spaces are subject to hyperbolic scrutiny, turning everyday concepts into deities like the aforementioned genie. Here, one of the most crucial parts of the game comes into play, and I'd argue it's the most crucial part of the experience. It's design philosophy, style over substance. And this is where its artistry shines. If art is meant to evoke, to challenge, to make us feel something ineffable, then this game is a masterpiece of avant-garde design. It does not give us the satisfaction of clear resolution because that is not its purpose. It instead asks us to consider what happens when a game does not follow the rules, when it refuses to be easily digestible or reductible to a singular theme or idea. You can easily break it apart as merely a fetch quest, but that isn't its purpose. In a world defined by surreal visuals, absurd humor, and purposely ambiguous narratives, the aesthetic choices become the primary mode of storytelling, as there aren't any out there to be grounded within the confines of a conventional narrative. I'm not claiming that the game's story has no meaning, but rather that it would not benefit the game to ground itself in a traditional narrative depth or concrete plot points, but rather allow itself to prioritize a visual and auditory experience that captivates people the same way an art house show does. This approach isn't about neglecting meaning, it's about presenting meaning in a way that is experienced rather than explicitly explained. The lush, dreamlike imagery and offbeat character interactions invite players to interpret the underlying themes through their own perceptions and emotions. I'll argue that because of that, I cannot physically derive meaning out of each piece of dialogue from the game itself like I do with most of my videos, for the reasons I've stated above. Returning to the hub world, there's one more thing which I have not presented, that has no relation to each of the alternate paths, so I'll go over that quickly before I dive into the paths themselves. If we head on out to the back of the ship and do some parkour to climb it, first of all, this is the location of a pet, a creature which will be important for a later quest. Second of all, we can open a door and enter a sort of bar/makeup room. I can't quite tell you, the mirrors are large and there's bottles lying around. The soundtrack is a disquieting low bitrate high reverb song which sounds like an orchestra playing a sad melody while the screams of the crowd can occasionally be heard in the distance. Climbing higher still with a rope, we push our way through a narrow, winding hallway. Then, unexpectedly, a sign to the right catches our eye. A subtle push against the door reveals a hidden passage behind what appears to be a false wall. We step through into a long, expansive room that feels like a forgotten relic of a bygone era. In one corner, a weathered toilet stands as a bizarre centerpiece next to a boarded-up zone and a scattered pile of gleaming gold ingots. When we interact with the toilet, a cryptic message appears. This isn't the bathroom. Piles of garbage line the floor of the room, but there seems to be something behind the pile of gold. With a well-timed crouch jump, we managed to reach even further into this hidden labyrinth and to make it into a room with a strange painting, some boxes and a chair. The room is minimal in its furnishings, containing only the strange painting, a few nondescript boxes and a solitary chair. The painting itself is arresting, its colors are muted yet complex, evoking a sense of timeless melancholy and sterile detachment. It looks like the upper part of a whitish face. When we interact with the chair, we are met with the message, "It's almost warm." In contrast, a brief touch of the painting reveals a message declaring, "It's almost dry," insinuating the fact someone was here not long ago painting. There's nothing else in the room, but the walls seem to be made out of some sort of fabric. I tried interacting with a lot of the things around it, but there doesn't seem to be a way to do anything else in the room, so I promptly left. But before I did, I felt an urge to stay. There must be something, I was saying to myself, something hidden, some meaning to this room. There's a tendency in modern discourse to insist that art must have something to say in order to be valid or valuable. This game argues the opposite. Art can simply be. It can exist as an experience, as an experiment, as a disruption of expectations. The room is so well hidden it drives the player absolutely mad, upon the eventual discovery that it has nothing to do with anything. It simply exists for the purpose of existing, of showing you the feeling of the inside of the room. The journey through Ena's Dream BBQ is not about uncovering some hidden truth or grand revelation, it's about this feeling right here. About feeling lost, confused, enthralled, alienated, fascinated, and maybe even frustrated. And that is precisely what makes it brilliant. Returning to the hallway and climbing yet again another rope, we reach the roof of the cruise ship. Here we can jump off behind it, if we wish, and on the ground we can spot an arrow made out of stones pointing towards something. If we follow the rocks, it leads us to a statue sitting by a tree. The first time I got here, the text was "Missing chaperone, cannot establish link." There's an item in the game called the taxi driver's head, which is required to finish the taxi driver's quest I spoke about earlier, when I talked about the shore and the labyrinth, which reaches the beauty store. But even if you come back with it here, the text simply switches to the statue's link is not secure yet. So I'm currently unsure what to do with it. Maybe the community can figure something to do with this one. I wanted to add upon that although I've explored the game to the best of my knowledge and abilities, I don't think I've seen everything, and I don't claim to know every secret. So while this is quite an in-depth review and analysis of the thing, I genuinely think I'm going to miss some of the secrets. Be sure to point them in the comments if you think I can make another video pointing each one out. In the meantime, we can focus on two routes currently present in the game. I assume there are only two. The first one is called the job route and involves a lengthy set of fetch quests, while the second is called the taxi route and involves the taxi driver's head only. Although I assume the canon route is the job route, so we'll talk about that one first. Although, in order to do that, we need to rewind everything back to the moment we left the ship. After we leave the ship, we are met with a square of some sorts filled with colorful characters. I decided to speak to the witches first in my playthrough. They are three ladies dressed strangely, fezzes on their heads, earrings of different shapes and long red robes. They are looking for the bathroom. They tell you one of them got lost looking for the bathroom and now it's your job to look for her. They also mentioned that the last time they saw her was inside the seal house, so we decide to head there. But first we need to talk to an equally interesting character. Besides them sits a mannequin resembling a horse-like entity, which again in similar fashion to a lot of other characters before him says he's the boss, right before Ena calls him a liar.
Could you tell me everything you know about this G?
He says an asshole left the door open and his pets ran away. He tasks us with finding all four of them, and in exchange promises us a lot of money. He mentions the fact each pet is marked by a pool of blood they leave behind. After taking two quests on, we enter the seal house. The interior is tent-like, with pink bubbles floating in the atmosphere. The ceiling holds a giant hook with a plane attached to it. The plane has an angry wizard face where the beard is a giant bolt holding a pink convertible, which is dipped in an equally strange pink liquid. The music sounds similar to the Marine Research Laboratory from Majora's Mask. Thing which will make sense once we actually meet the wizard inhabiting this house. Walking near the puddle of pink liquid and interacting with it makes the eyes of the plane scan and create the outline of the wizard before materializing him. He wears a classic robe featuring stars and half moons, all blue with an equally classic wizard hat. He says he will be happy to explain everything to us. He says that in order to reach the bathroom we must get alive. After being given this mission, we proceed further exploring. If we try interacting with the pond after the cutscene has ended, the wizard just dances awkwardly around. So we head out and decide that the first quest we'll follow is the one with the pants, since we already have found one on top the ship earlier when we did the maze/taxi side quest. So walking around we stumble upon a trail of purple blood, which leads us directly into a cave inside one of the apartment buildings scattered all around the place. Following the trail thoroughly through the flooded cave leads us to a pit with an alien-like looking kid reaching to grab his hoe. If we jump we can grab it for him and he thanks us and then moves to another spot. There's also a trail of red blood which if we follow leads us to another one of those pets. The inside of the cave in some places pulsates strangely, almost like it's alive. Inside the cave we can also find the chauffeur's head, required for the taxi route. It's hidden right below an intersection on a lower platform. After doing some parkour we can easily reach it and grab it off a shining light. If we drop down to that intersection again we can see some people in a fancy room. Even using the game's built-in zoom we can't quite make it out. But to me it appears like a certain point in the future. Opening the scene up in Premiere and zooming in, we can see it's Ena, one of those weird pyramidal snake creatures from outside, which float about the wasteland, and Joel G's dog, the one from his profile picture that represents him. Ena seems to be holding a jar with a small creature inside. Unsure of the meaning of this, although it's clearly an interesting sight. We then head outside and wander more across the wide landscape. Up ahead, a rickety bridge spans a chasm that shimmers under an overcast sky, letting a huge opening into nothingness. Its weather planks and traditionally crafted Japanese supports hinting at countless untold stories. Right beside the bridge, a chaotic pile of stacked files and suitcases bursting with odd documents are scattered haphazardly as if abandoned in haste. The files look old and are textured like Windows 98 era files. An anteater-like figure with elongated limbs and a white, almost snow-like face stands guard at the threshold of the bridge. He methodically shuffles files from one pile to another, hefting a heavy sack, brimming with them. Upon spotting our approach, he exclaims in a very, almost exasperated tone, "Oh no, not another one," before launching into a long-winded explanation that one of the witch sisters has already passed the bridge. His tone is extremely annoyed and half resigned as he keeps going on and on about his day and how horrible it's been. He insists he cannot let us pass unless we do one particular task, force the child whom we saved earlier to stop staring at him and his bridge. We head to the structure where the child sits upon and we notice a trail of blood. On top of the structure we find yet another pet. When speaking to the child he seems enamored by the bridge, so this is a no-go. We need to go look for the last pet. On the way there we find the same character we last saw in the maze, which talks about the fact Ena is employed and they are unemployed, before promptly getting mad and becoming a hellspawn from the ninth circle of Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy.
Rude entities like you get punished for the sins of others.
Tell me! I'm joking!
for it, didn't you?
Miss, could you keep it down, please? The pizza guy is right here.
You know, I'm pretty good at organizing words. I should be the CEO of organizing events or something.
We find the last pet behind the rock near the seal house. We give them back to the horse dude, who appears to have been lying and thanks us for giving him a meal before promptly giving us 10 chocolate coins. We take this to a vending machine which sells us a jar of mayonnaise, and with that jar we go and cover the child's eyes so he stops looking at the bridge of the anteater. Despite that, he refuses to move along and let us pass. But the karmic energies sort of turn against him as the child manages to break the block made of mayonnaise and laser him to a crisp. We are now free to pass on to the other side of the bridge, but first why don't we take a look at his belongings. There's this weird cube you can bounce upon, some files hanging in different storage systems, and a rotating planet orb. After looking around for a bit, we decide to pass to the other side of the bridge. While walking onto the actual thing, I notice moths with delicate wings encrusted by the dust of forgotten times cling to the sides of the bridge, fluttering listlessly in the breeze. Their presence adds a final touch of melancholy as we pass through the other side. Here we follow the road and find lots of these children that look exactly like the one we saved earlier, sitting around a crane which looks like a giant skull. When interacting with it, it says a crane, useful for moving large objects when needed. Progressing further down the path, we find the fourth witch sitting atop a building. She says she went in search of the bathroom, wishing to have her sins cleared and the truth revealed to her. She seems stuck and gives us the quest to look for a way to move her.
You aren't who I was expecting to see here. Did that kind young man from the bridge let you in too? What a gentleman. I hope he's having a good day. Anywho, I came here in search of the bathroom. I hope to clear my sins and have the truth revealed to me. But I couldn't reach it, and now, frankly, I'm stuck here.
Using the crane, we do a puzzle where we move her back to her relatives. We have to bounce the crane off of different buildings in order for it to reach the square. After returning her there and walking back, we complete her quest. They say they will go back home, but almost forget Ena's reward. Eventually they give her a strange motherboard, which we need to move to a shaman, before they eventually begin dissolving into nothing. Returning to the wizard and giving him the motherboard, he throws it into the pond, then clones himself a bunch of times, making the entire tent explode, killing the seal in the process too. He gives us a head which can be planted into different holes to access different locations, sort of like an ability. Behind him I spot a small pixelated character which claims to have found a luxury bag. He says nothing interesting but talks about just a hypothetical of what he could place inside the bag. With the head we can now head over to a ton of new places. We can climb up the top of the cave building and meet a rain cloud who's looking for his child. We can go back into the cave and climb to a cat holding a screen who says confusing lines. We climb up on yet another building and meet a boss played by none other than Sir Pello. His only line is "I am the boss" in different tonalities.
I'm the boss!
Eventually we decide to go back on the other side of the bridge and begin our climb to the top. We use the head and begin to climb to the Ovum Island in the sky. On the first platform we meet two fodder characters, one of them saying that they can sense the overflowing tears and sins coming from the bathroom. We begin climbing, using the head through a thick fog as the music seems to intensify more and more. We keep ascending with careful platforming as the piano notes seem to climb and climb, the sky turns blue and it starts snowing. Eventually, the body starts freezing as we climb, and wind starts howling, pushing us in our jumps, climb and climb as the synthwave music starts building, heavy winds pushing us against the idea of climbing to the top of the platform, but we keep pushing and pushing unturned. As we reach a final door of pure whiteness and walk into it, we arrive at the giant egg. The place is surrounded by pets we can actually pet. As we walk by and try to interact with it, its face lunges, eating us and pulling us up into the actual egg, has different tentacles attached to us. We get a call from Froggy, who thinks we are still in the bathroom. We try to speak, but our words come out as gibberish as we get sucked into the thing completely and the screen fades to black. We awaken before an imposing Oni-like creature, its visage a tapestry of ancient fury and modern disquiet. In a cutscene that feels both intimate and otherworldly, we witness Ena in a more humanoid form, a fragile figure whose torso now bears a gaping hole from which a ghostly projection of her former self emerges. Ena's voice is laden with sorrow and regret, and sounds rather depressed. She laments her aching head and, in a desperate plea, asks for something: comforting milk, coffee, or even a return to the sanctuary of the bathroom. The Oni, with a knowing gesture, points towards a colossal, mysterious bathroom. All around us, a host of colored Onis, each with their own inscrutable expression, directs our gaze to the same destination.
It's not enough for this many bodies. I hate myself.
We have to pass a bridge using the head one last time, before arriving on the other side. As we set off toward the giant bathroom, it diminishes in scale, throwing us inexorably through its portal into a proper, starkly lit bathroom. In the quiet, punctuated only by whispers that seem to drift from the void, we approach two sacred objects, a fountain and a sink. Their voices, both terrifying and ominous, murmur riddles. A fountain of smoke to collect lies, and a sink to wash the sin off the face, prompting us to confront the nature of truth, deception, and redemption in this disorienting realm. We head down a staircase and arrive in some sort of locker room. As we progress further, we reach a well at the end of the corridor. We pull up a cord, and along with it one of the matryoshkas from the beginning of the game is brought to view. It congratulates us for reaching the bathroom. Its voice sounds of prayer as it introduces itself as Theodora, the genie of these lands. Then proceeds to forgive all our sins, allowing us to ascend, until realizing it's Ena, at which point she unforgives her sins. Ena screams at her to come back, and she does. Admiring her courage, she says she will grant Ena one wish.
Τίποτα περισσότερο τι επιδιώκεις, τι είδους ζωή θέλεις να ζήσεις, έχεις μου τις φιλοδοξίες σου.
Picking any of the options other than aspire to get rid of the smoke leads to some very funny dialogue, but no effect.
Dear Genie, your boss is our target today, but the smoke is in the way of our business. Would you kindly get rid of it at once?
Τι ακριβώς είναι αυτό για έναν στόχο? Γνωρίζεις καν τα συστατικά αυτής της λεκτικής σαλάτας. Το μυαλό σου φαίνεται να έρχεται σε σύγκρουση με τα γράμματα που φτύνει. Οι ανησυχίες και οι φόβοι θα προδώσουν μόνο τους αλήθινους σου στόχους. Ένα. Μέσα σε αυτό το πηγάδι θα βρεις τη ρίζα του πόνου σου.
Asking to remove the smoke will lead the genie to open the well. Jumping within it leads us to a white screen and the genie saying, "Remember, Ena, all it takes is a place and the right food." In an instant we are hurled into a heavenly bathhouse, where clouds of gold drape over a shimmering watery surface, and a smoke machine conjures an atmosphere of otherworldly glory as towering pillars rise towards the heavens, a fleeting glimpse of a paradise drenched in irony and transient hope. To me, this appears and unfolds as the most intricate and beautiful scenes of the entire game. But to me, it remains simply as a joke. I guess the beauty of seeing the place where the smoke forms contrasts with your goal of shutting it down. It differentiates itself sharply and forms an intricate yet perhaps complicated atmosphere. How does one turn down the immense beauty of heaven, although it creates the most vile and toxic smoke one can inhale? Approaching the smoke machine, we are asked if the business can bear the liability of obliterating the smoke machine. Clicking yes leads us to a quick time event where we have to spam E to destroy it. As soon as we do, the environment turns dark, the heavenly vibe gone as the lake of water is the only thing that remains. From its beauty and serenity now lay before us a saddened past of what was once angelic. As we think the game reaches its conclusion, through the smoke's machine destruction, we are left not with answers but with the impressions. But it yet again pulls a red herring. A door appears behind the statue as we awake back in the locker room. This time it seems destroyed, like a memory of some sorts. As we progress, we receive a call from Frogging asking us if the bathroom business is done, and also telling us this world we are in is about to destroy because the smoke has been stopped and we are given a limited amount of time to escape before the world inevitably implodes. We return to the wasteland. This time it's missing texture. Everything is grey and textured, the world filled with even more bizarre things and tombstones which speak back to us. Everything appears dead, missing substance and logicality, but this time discolored, rid of soul as it breaks down. Grey cubes begin appearing around us. As we are sort of getting swallowed by them, I begin instinctively running towards the lonely door, trying to escape, but the door is already closed. As we turn around, every creature is covered in these cubes, and we get caught as well, set immobile as a cutscene plays. Showcasing Ena in a triangle made out of these cubes as she struggles, and a white mannequin breaks out of her inner self, falling into the water. hand grabs us through the door as the credits begin playing. After the cutscenes, we can see Froggy and Dracula arguing over the mannequin as it comes back to life, becoming Ena. As such, we have arrived at the end of the first path. We can now go down the taxi route I spoke about in the beginning. If instead of doing all of the jobs for the aforementioned characters, we simply take the chauffeur's head and head to something which the characters, even people like Kane, have spoken about. Even the witches mention it. We go to the Purge event. As we enter the taxi, a writhing tentacle scoops us up and deposits us into a desolate realm, littered with crumbling gravestones and scattered markers that seem to record forgotten sins. We see one of the children with many eyes running away from us. Running through the desolate environment, a building falls out of the sky, which appears to be the place where we came from. We appear to be in the cracks of the sky we saw in the skybox earlier. The building has collapsed around the ruins of the taxi. Enormous blocks of stones have cascaded down, forming a treacherous barrier that we must scale. Following the trail of the enigmatic purple child, we eventually reach a giant ear canal, an anatomical monument that seems to listen to our every step. We receive a phone call from Froggy scolding us for partying in the middle of work.
Event?
嘘だろあんた。仕事をほっぽり出してパーティーしてんのか？
I crave freedom and the G is my only escape.
バスルームだ？またそれか。あんた生きて帰れないかもしれないんだ。
In the line for the party entrance, there are a bunch of people we've seen and spoken to before. When talking to the receptionist, they ask us to pay a toll with either one of our arms or one of our legs. We surrender a hand, and with that we are granted entry into a rave set within a traditional Japanese house. Every sliding door and meticulously arranged tatami mat contrasts sharply with the surreal toll of our journey. Here, familiar faces among them, the ever-present unemployed girl, mingle with figures that seem as if they've stepped out of a fever dream. In one corner, a Power Ranger-esque character oversees the revelry.
How can I lead this stupid event? My lame, scheduleless role, I can't afford another minute of joy.
As the room fills with pinkish, intoxicating liquid, a drug that warps perception and blurs the line between ecstasy and despair. Get high on the drug and become some sort of dinosaur creature, stuck in a maze of dinosaurs which seem to be eating each other. following a certain whistling leads us to a final door where we meet a giant dinosaur. After we do, we get eaten by one of them and transported back to the darkened void with Onis and the giant bathroom. But since we have no head this time, we can't really jump directly, and due to the fact the screen is shaking, I miss a jump. I think if I were not to miss, I would have gotten to see the same ending as previously, but since I fell into the white liquid, I ended up in a field full of houses. We meet a king which tells us that entities fighting each other for Thai attention, creating a path to the correct hut for the sinful souls whom arrive to this unfortunate place. I know not which one to trust, which tells the truth. So tired I am of lies. He laments, his words echoing as a dirge for a world drowning in deceit and desperation. Guided by these ghostly entities, we follow them until we stumble upon the correct door, transporting us to a canal full of water and vegetation. As we move along it, souls dance around and we eventually reach the end of it. Entering a water fountain room where a version of the genie stands broken. Whoever you are talking with now is what remains of the former genie of these lands. Forgiveness is only a gift you can never have. Ena talks to this broken genie, asking it to remove the smoke so she can get on with her business. The broken genie answers, "The boss you are looking for. Are you familiar with his background, his family, his face? Even if you can't answer these questions, you seem to recognize very well who this entity is. Despite this confidence, you and me holding a conversation in this place says a lot about your inability to complete such a task. Could there have been hesitation in your actions? Unfortunately, there's not much else I can do for you right now. I choose to remind you this place we are in is too far away from your real physical form. I can only keep you from returning to it. However, I may make an exception for today. Touch my memories. Let me show you a reality, one where you achieved your deepest desires." As a golden statue of a small boy begins flying out of the remains of the genie. From here, the outro unfolds in familiar cadence. We are transported to a heavenly bathhouse where the smoke machine is silenced, and despite a few final moments of peril, we manage to escape. In our final return to the hub world, we find Dratula and Froggy locked in another absurd argument, an echo of our journey's cyclic nature. It ends just as it began. In many ways, the game mirrors the structure of a dream, where narrative coherence is less important than emotional impact. It evokes the feeling of searching for something undefined, being forced by forces we do not fully understand, only to arrive at a destination that feels both inevitable and unknowable. The Bathhouse, the endless void, the bizarre conversations, all of this contribute to an atmosphere where logic dissolves and what remains is a pure sensation. This is why the game is not just an avant-garde work, but a celebration of the very essence of what interactive media can achieve. Unlike traditional storytelling, which relies on resolution and finality, games, especially ones like this, offer space where ambiguity can thrive. The player's choices, experiences, and interpretations become part of the art itself. Every playthrough is different, not just because of mechanical variation, but because the meaning is left open, fluid, and deeply personal. What does this sprawling odyssey tell us? Both routes, the one through the dark, crumbling wasteland and the one via the chaotic taxi route, speak to a central, poignant theme of our relentless pursuit of truth and transformation in a world that revels in its own contradictions. The search of God, the existence of an all-powerful entity, the genie. The taxi route is marked by a grotesque toll and surreal marketplaces of memory where even the price of passage is measured in limbs. The environments themselves present scenes dense in meaning, from desolate grave-like fields to vibrant life-affirming canals that reflect the inner turmoil and eventual catharsis of our journey. Each character's cryptic pronouncements, the king's weary lament about truth and lies, the genie's painful absolution, and even the carnival-like absurdity of the rave serve as signposts on the road to self-discovery. In some regard, as they represent fractured parts of a psyche, they challenge the idea of overwork. Reminded multiple times throughout the campaign that Ena overworks herself, and in the rave she can't stand wasting her time. Our own hesitations, the lies we tell ourselves, and the sacrifices we are willing to make in our search for meaning are nothing compared to our work in some regard. In the end, the convergence of these divergent paths, both present with danger, humor, and existential insight, gives a satisfying conclusion to the first chapter of this game. A chapter that is as much about external escape as it is about inner redemption. The golden statue, the broken genie's final words, and the cyclical return to the familiar hub world suggest that while we may forever be haunted by the absurdities of this realm, there's also hope in our capacity to learn, to forgive, and ultimately to transcend. As the credits roll, a single question remains on my mind. In a world defined by chaos and contradiction, is the true measure of our worth found not in our accomplishments, but in our willingness to keep moving forward, even when the very foundations of reality crumbles around us?